Before there was auto-tune or country pop, there was Mel Street, a voice so raw and real it could make a jukebox cry. Born King Malachi Street in the coal-dusted hills of Buchanan County, Virginia, Mel wasn't handed anything. He clawed his way from garage shifts and Appalachian dive bars to the edge of Nashville stardom with nothing but a beat-up guitar, a velvet voice, and a fire in his soul. From Borrowed Angel to Lovin' on back streets, Mel's songs didn't just climb charts, they bled heartache, grit, and the kind of pain only real life can write. But behind the spotlight was a man unraveling, battling demons no stage could silence. In this documentary, we're diving deep into the untold life of Mel Street, the Appalachian boy turned country powerhouse, the father, the fighter, and the haunted genius who gave everything to the music and paid the ultimate price. If you think you know country, think again. This is the story Nashville couldn't polish, and history refuses to forget. In the 1930s, deep in the hollers of Buchanan County, Virginia, the air's thick with coal dust and life's as hard as the mountains surrounding it. That's where our story starts, with a kid named King Malachi Street. Yep, that's his real name, and it's as badass as it sounds. Born in 1933 to a coal miner dad, Mel grew up in a world where poverty wasn't just a word, it was the rhythm of life. The Appalachian community was tight, but it was brutal. Young Mel worked in the mines and garages as a teen, his hands calloused, his dreams bigger than the hills. Music? That was his escape hatch. He'd listen to Hank Williams and gospel tunes, feeling the chords vibrate through his soul. The hollers gave me my voice, he'd later tell Country Song Roundup in '75. Pains in every note. And man, did he mean it. Imagine a teenage Mel Street in the late 1940s, barely out of short pants, hunched over a beat-up guitar in a cramped Buchanan County bedroom. The world outside is all coal dust and hard scrabble. His dad's a miner, and the family's scraping by in Virginia's rugged hollers. But Mel, he's got fire in his fingers and dreams bigger than the mountains. He's teaching himself guitar, mimicking the twang of Hank Williams and the soul of gospel hymns crackling through a fuzzy radio. Every chord he strums feels like a rebellion against the minds waiting to claim him. His voice, oh man, his voice is something else. It's raw, smoky, like he's channeling the ghosts of the Appalachians. By 15, he's playing for anyone who'll listen, making barflies in Grundy's seediest joints wipe tears into their whiskey. This kid isn't just good, he's haunting, singing with a depth that belies his years, like he's already lived 100 lives. By the early 1950s, Mel's juggling two worlds. Days are spent under the hood of cars, wrench in hand, fixing engines in a garage to help pay the bills. But when the sun dips, he's a different man. He's crooning on WNRG, Grundy's local radio station, his voice floating over the airwaves to every coal camp and hollow within reach. Picture him in a tiny studio, mic close to his lips, pouring his heart into covers of Your Cheatin' Heart, or a gospel standard that makes listeners stop dead in their tracks. Word spreads fast, and soon he's gigging across the border in Bluefield, West Virginia. These ain't fancy venues. Think dive bars with sticky floors, neon signs buzzing, and crowds that'll either love you or chuck a bottle at your head. Mel thrives in the chaos. His slicked back hair and soulful eyes draw a crowd, but it's his voice that keeps him there. Tips are measly, quarters and crumpled dollar bills, but every gig fuels his hunger. He's not chasing fame yet. He's chasing the feeling of a room hanging on his every note. Then in the late 50s, Mel hits a new level. He lands a gig hosting a TV show on WHIS in Bluefield, and let me tell you, this is where the spark of a star ignites. Imagine tuning into a grainy black and white broadcast, and there's young Mel, maybe 24, looking like a country James Dean with a guitar slung low. He's charming, a little shy, but when he sings, it's like the world stops. He's serenading Appalachia with originals and covers, his voice cutting through the static to reach living rooms across Virginia and West Virginia. Women swoon, men nod along, and kids dream of being him. He's a regional heartthrob, the guy your grandma still talks about with a twinkle in her eye. That Whiz show isn't just a job. It's proof Mel's got something special, a charisma and talent that can't stay local forever. Nashville's still a distant dream, but the seeds are planted. Fast forward to the 1960s, and Mel's no longer the kid strumming in dive bars. He's a man with a mission, leading a band that's tearing up honky-tonks across Virginia and West Virginia. These joints are the real deal, smoky, sweaty, and rough as hell. Picture rooms packed with truckers, miners, and heartbreakers. The air thick with cigarette haze and the clink of beer bottles. Fights spill into parking lots. Jukeboxes hum between sets. And Mel's band is the heartbeat of it all. He's not just performing now, he's commanding. His set lists mix Hank Williams with his own songs, each one a dagger to the heart. Mel's writing from his roots, poverty, loss, the sting of a brother's death in a mining accident back in the 50s. His lyrics bleed with authenticity and crowds can't get enough. He's not a polished act yet, but that rawness, it's his superpower. In 1966, Mel takes a gamble that changes everything. He scrapes together every penny he's got and self-records Forbidden Angel, a cheating ballad that's equal parts sin and sorrow. It's not just a song, it's a confession, sung with a voice that feels like it's been dipped in whiskey and regret. He presses a few copies, sends them out, and somehow it lands in Nashville. Scouts perk up. This gritty track, born in a no-name studio, catches the ear of Royal American Records, and they offer him a deal. Mel's in the big leagues now, or so he thinks, but Nashville's a beast. His early singles, like The Town That Never Sleeps in '67, don't exactly light up the charts. They're good, damn good, but the industry's crowded, and Mel's still a small fish in a big pond. He's learning the game, cutting his teeth and refusing to quit. The breakthrough's coming, and it's going to hit like a damn freight train. Cue the 1970s, the decade where Mel Street becomes a force of nature. In 1970, he signs with Metro Media Country, and 2 years later, he unleashes the song that defines him, Borrowed Angel. This ain't just a hit. It's a seismic event in country music. Dropping in 1972, it climbs to number 7 on Billboard's Hot Country Singles. And let me paint the picture for you. Borrowed Angel is a self-penned masterpiece about a man caught between love and forbidden desire, delivered with a voice that's practically bleeding. Every note drips with longing, every lyric a gut punch. It sells over 300,000 copies per Billboard, and you can feel its impact in every jukebox from Nashville to the middle of nowhere. Walk into any honky-tonk in 72, and Mel's voice is pouring out, making strangers cry into their beers. This song isn't just a chart climber. It's a cultural moment, proof that Mel Street's arrived. He doesn't stop there. Mel's on fire, churning out hits that keep the momentum blazing. Lovin' on Back Streets drops in 72, hitting number 1, 5, a steamy ode to secret romance that's got fans swooning. Then comes The Town Where Hunger Never Sleeps in 73, peaking at number 18 but resonating deeper with its haunting nod to his roots. These aren't just songs, they're stories, each one a window into Mel's soul. His voice, backed by the Nashville sound's lush strings and weeping steel guitars, turns every track into an emotional landmine. You don't just hear Mel sing, you feel it like he's whispering your own heartbreak back to you. By now, he's not just a singer, he's a storyteller, crafting anthems that make you want to call your ex at 2 a.m. and spill your guts. Mel's career is a whirlwind. He jumps to Polydor, then GRT Records, and starts stacking number 1S on the Cashbox charts. Forbidden Angel, that same raw track from '66, gets a re-release and hits number 1 in '74. Then Smoky Mountain Memories tops the chart in '75, a love letter to his Appalachian childhood that's so vivid you can smell the pine. In 1976, I Met a Friend of Yours Today takes the crown, a sly, soulful jab at infidelity. Billboard's peaks are solid but lower, number 8, number 10, number 10, and yeah, some folks might nitpick, but who cares? Mel's selling out shows, packing venues with fans who hang on his every word. He's touring with the Grand Ole Opry, sharing stages with legends, though, fun fact, he never joins as a member. Why? Maybe he's too much of a rebel, too tied to his roots to play the Nashville game fully. Either way, he's living the dream, or at least it looks that way. His albums are fire too. Borrowed Angel in '72 hits number 14 on the country charts, a collection of heartbreakers that showcases his range. Two-Way Street in '74 climbs to number 1, 22, leaning hard into the Nashville sound with soaring strings and pedal steel that could make a statue cry. Tracks like Bad, Bad Leroy Brown, number 13 in '73, and Don't Let Me Cross Over, number 9 in '74, prove Mel's not a one-hit wonder. His delivery's a killer combo of grit and grace, like he's singing from the bottom of a well and the top of a mountain at the same time. Fans are obsessed, screaming his name at shows, begging for one more song. He's not just a star. He's a force, a man who makes country music feel alive, urgent, real. By 1977, Mel's with Mercury Records, and he's still slinging bangers. Barbara, Don't Let Me Be the Last to Know soars to number 1. 2. A pleading ballad that's pure Mel. Vulnerable, intense, unforgettable. Country Boys hits number 1. 3 in '78. A rowdy tribute to rural life that's got crowds stomping. His final top 10, Just Hangin' On, lands at number 8 that same year, a bittersweet anthem of perseverance. Mel's at the peak of his powers, but here's where the story takes a turn. Behind the spotlight, the man's fighting battles, no chart position can win. The road's been long, the pressure's crushing, and Mel's demons are starting to claw their way to the surface. To understand what's coming, we've got to rewind and dig into the man behind the music, the heart, the hurt, and the weight he carried every step of the way. Mel Street wasn't just a voice that could make jukeboxes weep. He was a man with a family he loved fiercely, even as his dreams pulled him away. Back in the early 1950s, when he was barely out of his teens, Mel tied the knot with Betty Jo Dean, a Bluefield girl with a heart as strong as the Virginia mountains. They were young, scrappy, and in love, building a life in the shadow of coal mines and hard times. Betty was his anchor, his cheerleader, the one who believed in his music when it was just a spark. By 1959, they'd brought 3 kids into the world, Sandra in '54, Larry in '56, and Audie in '59. Picture their Bluefield home, a modest place filled with the chaos of toddlers, the twang of Mel's guitar, and Betty's steady hand keeping it all together. Mel was a dad who'd wrestle with his kids on the living room floor, his laugh as warm as his voice. But he was also a dreamer, itching to turn his bar gigs into something bigger. Life in Bluefield was tough but tight-knit. Mel worked as a mechanic, his hands stained with grease while gigging at night in West Virginia dives. Betty held down the fort, managing diaper changes and dinner with a grace that kept the family grounded. But by 1972, Mel's career was heating up and Nashville was calling. The family packed up and moved to Music City, chasing the dream, that borrowed angel would make them all proud. They settled in Hendersonville, Tennessee, just outside Nashville's hustle, in a neighborhood buzzing with country stars. For Mel, it was a leap of faith, leaving the hollers for a shot at the big time. For Betty, it was a sacrifice, uprooting their kids to support her husband's passion. She became the backbone of the operation, handling Bill's school runs and the kids' homesickness while Mel hit the road with his band. Tour life was glamorous on the surface, crowds cheering, Opry stages. But it was lonely, too, and the distance started to wear on them all. Mel's love for his family shone through, but so did his struggles. Alcoholism had sunk its hooks into him back in the 1960s, when the dive bar circuit and the weight of his brother's death in a mining accident fueled late-night binges. By the time fame hit in the 70s, the bottle was a constant companion. Life on the road didn't help. Endless highways, smoky venues, and the pressure to keep churning out hits turned the dial up on his drinking. Betty saw it, the kids felt it, and Mel himself knew he was slipping. In 1976, things got messy. Nashville cops pulled him over for a DUI, slapping him with a $200 fine per the Nashville Banner. It was a public stumble for a man whose voice was climbing the charts, and the headlines stung. Mel promised to clean up, checking into rehab in 77 with a determination to get right for Betty and the kids. But the bottle's pull was stronger than his resolve. Relapses came, each one chipping away at the man who'd once lit up rooms with his smile. Depression was creeping in too, a shadow that grew darker with every tour. Friends like Johnny Rodriguez, a fellow country star, noticed Mel changing. The guy who'd once cracked jokes backstage was getting quieter, more distant, his eyes carrying a weight that no one could fully name. Sandra, his daughter, later opened up in a 2004 Virginia living piece, painting a picture of a dad who was both larger than life and deeply human. He'd come home from a tour and scoop us up telling stories about the road, she said, but there were nights he'd sit alone with his guitar, and you could feel the storm in him. Mel was warm, pouring love into his kids with bear hugs and silly songs, but he was volatile too. The highs of a great show could flip to lows where he'd retreat into himself, wrestling with demons he couldn't outrun. His songs carried that weight. Tracks like Smoky Mountain Memories weren't just hits. They were confessions. Every note a piece of the grief he carried from losing his brother in the 50s, a scar that never healed. Then came the car wreck in 74, a moment that could have changed everything, but didn't. Mel was driving through Virginia, maybe headed to a gig or back home, when his tour van got smashed. The crash totaled the vehicle, leaving Mel with minor injuries, cuts, bruises, a sore ego. He walked away, but the accident shook him. Friends said it was a wake-up call, a neon sign screaming, "Slow down, Mel." He talked about it in interviews, brushing it off with a laugh, but those close to him saw the fear in his eyes. It was a chance to rethink the drinking, the relentless touring, the pressure to stay on top. But Mel couldn't hit the brakes. The road was his lifeblood, and Nashville didn't reward quitters. He kept pushing, even as the cracks in his world grew wider. By the late 70s, Mel's career was starting to wobble. The hits that had defined the early decade, Borrowed Angel, Lovin' on Back Streets, Barbara, Don't Let Me Be the Last to Know, were fading in the rear view. His last charted single, Close Enough for Lonesome, limped to number 28 in 78, a far cry from his top 10 glory days. He was bouncing between smaller labels, Sunbird, Lake Country, searching for a spark that wouldn't come. His final album, Many Moods of Mel Street, dropped in 78, peaking at a modest number, 45 on the country charts. It was a solid record, packed with his signature soul, but the industry was shifting. Disco was creeping in, and newer acts were stealing the spotlight. Mel kept gigging, playing local spots in Virginia and Ohio where fans still sang every word, but the fire in his eyes was dimming. The man who'd once packed venues was now hauling his guitar to smaller crowds, each show a reminder of what used to be. And then, on October 21st, 1978, his 45th birthday, everything stopped. Mel was at home in Hendersonville, a place that should have been a sanctuary. He'd spent that day in the studio laying down tracks, maybe hoping for one last shot at the charts. Friends said he seemed focused, even upbeat, but something broke that night. In the quiet of his home, Mel took his own life with a gunshot. It was a gut punch that echoed from Nashville to Grundy, leaving fans, friends, and family reeling. He left a note, per the Tennessean, pouring out his despair, a career that felt stalled, a heart weighed down by personal pain, a mind too tired to keep fighting. The details of that note stayed private, but its weight hung heavy over everyone who loved him. Mel's death was a shockwave. His funeral in Grundy drew Opry legends like Ernest Tubb. Their heads bowed for a man who'd shared their stages. George Jones, a fan who'd once called Mel's voice pure country soul, was gutted, telling friends he wished he'd reached out more. Mel's ashes were scattered in the Grundy Mountains he'd always called home, a final return to the hollers that shaped him. He left behind Betty, who carried on until her own passing in '95, and their 3 kids, Sandra, Larry, and Audie, who'd grown up in the glow and shadow of their dad's talent. The country world mourned, but for those closest to him, the loss was a wound that never fully closed. Mel's legacy, though, refuses to fade. In 2025, his son Larry is keeping the flame alive, curating a Mel Street anthology reissue that's bringing classics like Borrowed Angel to new ears. Grundy hosts a small tribute festival where fans old and new gather to swap stories and sing his songs. Mel charted 34 singles, sold over 1 million records, and scored 3 Cashbox #1s, even if Billboard never gave him that top spot. He's a cult hero, a name whispered by those who know country soul. But his story's more than numbers. It's a reminder of what it costs to chase a dream, to love hard, to fall and keep going until you can't.